We have brand new information about the Devil's Den hiking homicides. We are tracking where the man accused of killing two parents hiking with their daughters in Arkansas came from.
1 minute he's fine, and then if you're kind of messing with him, he freaks out, completely freaks out, and so much to the point where it's like uncomfortable.
We spoke to a man who grew up with Andrew James McGann, and we'll talk about some of the red flags he says he's now thinking about since the 28-year-old's arrest. And we're also learning more about McGann's time as a teacher and the shocking things he reportedly said to female elementary school students in his classroom. We're on the case, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. The alleged Devil's Den State Park killer has a past that has admittedly been somewhat challenging to track down. Part of the reason for that is it appears he moved around a lot. For example, take his teaching career. Andrew James McGann was hired by at least 5 different school districts in 3 different states since 2022, and at least at one of them, McGann has been accused of acting inappropriately to young girls in his classroom by parents, and we're now learning more about the specifics of that, and let me tell you, it's very creepy. I'll have more on that in just a moment. But as far as piecing together McGann's background, even for police, it seems somewhat difficult from the beginning. When they first announced his arrest, they said his name was James Andrew McGann. Then hours later, they corrected that to Andrew James McGann. In a post from one of the schools where he used to work at, McGann says he went to Oklahoma State for college, but now we're learning he grew up several states away in Illinois in a suburb southwest of Chicago, and there, people knew him as Andy. Now imagine the shock of people who went to high school with him, who grew up in his neighborhood, when police announced who they arrested in the brutal, tragic, and horrific murders of Kristen and Clinton Brink. The parents murdered in front of their daughters, who were able to run to safety and call 911. And then you see the face with that crazed look in his eyes, accused of this horrific crime so awful it made national news, and that's the person you grew up with. I spoke with a man named Bill Engelhardt who says he spent part of his childhood growing up with Andrew James McGann, and he's now coming to grips with the reality that the person he once knew is accused of this horrific crime. Here's our conversation. First question, Bill, is just how did you know Andrew James McGann?
Just growing up in the neighborhood, it's Chicago. Yeah, everyone knows each other, one way or another, just from baseball and just growing up in the neighborhood like that.
What did you remember about him?
I remember, first off, his family was always nice to me. They were nice to everyone. His dad was a coach. His dad was my coach. Played baseball with him, and he was just, seemed like a normal kid, just, that's how I remember him. Personally, some people have said, he had quite a temper on him, but, I can't really equate that because kids, so.
Well, right. And especially with what he's accused of now.
Yeah.
Like, when was the last time, when would you say you guys lost touch?
I would say I'd say probably going into high school. Like we hung out here and there, like just from, being kids, and he's over here and I'm there, and then everyone meets up. And so, but, yeah, probably like, freshman year, something like that. And from what I know, people that were really close to him, they all lost contact with him. Like, I don't know what happened, honestly, but they said, yeah, he ended up blocking me or something, and that's what I've heard, so.
Before I get back to this episode of On the Case, I want to take a moment and thank our partner and sponsor, Morgan & Morgan. This is America's largest injury law firm. They have more than 1,000 attorneys, and they win a lot. They've recovered over $25 billion from more than 500,000 clients. In the past few months, a client in Florida received $12 million after the insurance company offered just $350,000. In Pennsylvania, a client was awarded $26 million. That was 40 times the insurer's $650,000 offer. Another client in Pennsylvania received $29 million after being offered only $500,000. Even if you don't think your case is worth millions of dollars, why not fight for what you deserve? Morgan & Morgan makes it so easy to start a claim. You can do it with just 8 easy clicks on your phone. So if you've been hurt and you need to start a claim, go to www.forthepeople.com/OTC. You can also scan this QR code on your screen or click the link below. Is there anything over the past week that you think about? And I know like you were kids when you knew them and then like here and there in the neighborhood, but like anything over the past week that's kind of like in hindsight you're thinking about?
Yeah, for sure. It's just, little things like, um, just him really losing his cool and like things that I've heard from people and they're like, yeah, like 1 minute he's fine. And then if, you're kind of messing with him, he freaks out, completely freaks out. And, you know, so much to the point where it's like uncomfortable. And I remember when we'd play baseball, he would get super, you know, really, really angry. But I also, like I said, it could be the pressures of being a kid and your dad's a coach, but just things like that. Just really, like, stories where I've heard he's cut someone off, like my friend's dad, and with his dad is in the car, and just freaking out at them for, just cutting and getting cut off. And it's like, there's the way he acted, there was no reason for it. Just little things like that are like kind of a red flag, like weird.
Yeah, because like and I know we were talking about that before, like there was just like your friend's dad and like had like some traffic dispute with him, right? And then he just
Right.
lost his cool.
Yeah, and there was so much to the point where my friend was saying, who acts like that, like just off of that, being that angry. And he even said, like, yeah, it was he even said it was uncomfortable how the way he acted, because it wasn't warranted.
Um, I know it's like probably a lifetime ago that you guys hung out and you knew each other, but
Mm.
like just as this story's like come out, like it's kind of a weird way to ask. Did he like date anybody? Was he like social like that?
I from what I remember, because I hate to say, because I'm not some handsome guy, but he always had trouble, like, you know with, you know the other sex or whoever he was with. But
Sure.
I've never seen him with a girl like that. And from what I heard in another interview, from a few years ago, the guy, he came and visited the guy, his old house with a girlfriend. So I'm like, oh well, I guess he was fine there, I guess. But I don't know, I'm not sure.
When did you find out that he was the person arrested for what happened in Arkansas?
uh Maybe like 2 or 3 days. It was like one of the first articles from somewhere in Arkansas, and it was like, I think it was just like it was like maybe right after they got him, or they had him.
Yeah,
And but I didn't we all over here, we didn't find out till like, kind of later at night. It's just not something you look for. And
right.
so we got sent a text by our buddy, and then all the group texts got it, and we're like, what the hell?
Because
Unbelievable.
yeah, what was going through your mind like when you realized that the same kid you played baseball with growing up, like
Yeah.
his dad's the coach,
Yeah,
and
slept at his
then
house.
right, like it's like this, I mean, this is it's a national news story and it's just like this horrendous story. And then like you see,
Yeah.
like what in that moment is it like to just like see his name?
It's shocking. It's really shocking, because you're like, you can't even fathom how someone could do that. Like how personal that it's just. I mean, like for me and like everyone else around here, and everyone else that knows the story, it's just like shock, like wow.
What was your, because like I know like we've seen pictures from like when he was young and probably around the same time that you guys were hanging out. And like
Mm,
there's also the pictures of like him as a teacher and he's like smiling. And then like you see the
yeah,
mug shot
yeah,
and
that
it's like
stark
this
difference.
complete, yeah. What's that like to kind of when you saw the mug shot for the first time?
Jeez, yeah, just like I said, it's shocking because you're like, I mean, you hate to assume things, but as soon as you see how someone looks and they look like that, you're like, wow, like something's wrong there. It's just like cold eyes, like stereotypical, crazy mugshot that you see in every on all of your story, a lot of your stories about things like this happening. You could just
Right.
see in the eyes, like very weird.
When like how would you describe like kind of the upbringing you guys had? I mean, you were at his house and like his
Yeah,
dad's a coach. I mean, it sounds pretty standard.
yeah. His dad was a really soft spoken guy. Brother, great kid. The mom, she's a typical. She's from Oklahoma, so being from Chicago, it's like right away she's got the southern accent and sweet lady, really sweet lady, and yeah, just that was yeah.
What's the I because I know like you guys are from like I think it's like a southwest suburb of
Oh
Chicago.
yeah,
And I
that's right.
see the
Yeah,
Sox
just
hat, like
yeah,
yeah,
just growing up around here is like it's a blue collar neighborhood. It's all this whole neighborhood is I'd say like 80% cops, and then the other rest are like firefighters or city workers. That's so it's a really union neighborhood, like typical union neighborhood.
and for your like and knowing that the community is so close knit, he knew so many people. Like, what is it just like kind of not even just for you, but like community wide, the conversations have been like over the past week?
Same thing, it's just like unbelievable, like shock. It's so shocking because you're like, never do you think you'd know someone that could be involved in something like this or even be capable of doing this. Just everyone, I would say, obviously shares the same sentiment. Like, wow, crazy.
And then just because I know you and everybody in Chicago knew him as Andy, right? And then
Hmm.
like I know, and like someone can change their name. Like I know he was known by Drew, but then it's like the police thought his name was James for 24 hours.
Right, using a
Like,
middle name.
what do you make of that kind of part of the story? Because it feels like even the Chicago part of it, it took like days to come out where like nobody has really
Right,
been
I
able to track down a lot about him.
I know from every like article I seen from the days prior, you know, before they like really knew things. I was like, they're not mentioning that he was from here. I was like, they're like, oh, he moved to or he moved here or there, and I'm like, he lived right here. He was blocks away from us. So it was pretty surprising. I'm like, man, like usually, the internet, everyone knows everything, and you could track something down super fast. And I was like, how have they not said that he's from here?
Yeah, it's yeah, the digital footprint or lack thereof has been because we cover a lot of these, not to this level, but
Yeah,
it seems like he covered his tracks almost in some way. And you look
yeah,
at part of the story with like the covering of the license plate.
right.
There's weird. Just I mean, the whole story is really sad, but it's just weird.
Yeah,
There's a lot
right.
of
You
weird
think like just because he's not an idiot because he's going through steps to conceal himself with his haircut, with the plates, waiting on a trail. Like it's just he's not he is insane, but insane for different reasons. Like, but he's smart. He's methodical. That's how he did it. It's there's no escaping that.
And I know like you played baseball with him and kind of
Hmm.
comes from a good family. I think in a lot of these
Yeah.
stories, like you hear about like the loner guy. Like, did he have friends? Would you say?
Yeah, yeah, he had friends. Um, he had a decent amount of friends. Just Probably more than you could count on your hand. You know, it's some people. It's just like over here, like everyone knows each other. Like I know 40 people still that I still talk to, and most people when they grow old, they're you have that you could count on one hand a group of friends. If you're lucky. So yeah, he totally had friends, but after high school, I have no clue. I have no idea.
Is there anything I missed or like anything about him you want people to know, or just kind of like the shock of the last week for everybody in your neighborhood in Chicago?
Yeah, the thing is that like just as I've said before, condolences to that family, to the Brink family, and to Arkansas and everyone affected. I mean, it's so unbelievably tragic. Like I can't even possibly imagine what's going through everyone's mind there. So I just want to send my condolences and all of my friends and whoever knows this case. It's terrible.
For as much as McGann had issues, it seems, with anger, it's still unclear what happened over the past several years in terms of cutting off people from his childhood and then allegedly becoming a crazed killer. What is clear, though, is that McGann moved around a lot. We've tracked 5 different school districts hiring McGann as an elementary school teacher in Arkansas, Texas, and Oklahoma, all since 2022. He was set to start in Springdale, Arkansas school district this week, but that was before he was arrested last week at a Springdale barbershop. When the story first broke, parents in Flower Mound, Texas, which is outside Dallas, started to voice concerns about how McGann handled himself in the classroom in the 2022 school year. This parent said he was inappropriate to little girls at Donald Elementary. Then you have another family from that school who told the New York Post that McGann put a little girl on his lap and allegedly said things like, quote, "I wish I could date you. I wish you could be my girlfriend." Think about that. Now, this mom went public on Facebook saying McGann would allegedly bring candy and soda to class, but would only give it to the girls. She also claims that McGann would hold lunch for, quote, "special girls." Now, the mom went on to say that at the same time, McGann was praised by some for being liked by students, for having charisma, and that could potentially point to how he was able to move from school to school and continue to be hired and pass background checks and then hide the person who he allegedly really is that we now know since he's in custody. The Texas school district where parents are accusing McGann of that inappropriate behavior say they did an investigation of McGann, but they didn't find evidence of inappropriate behavior. He was suspended for concerns related to classroom management, professional judgment, and student favoritism. And after leaving that school district in Texas, McGann moved to Oklahoma, where he taught in the Broken Arrow School District outside Tulsa. And then after a year there, he moved back to the Dallas area and he was hired by the Plano Independent School District. The Broken Arrow School District tells us that McGann left and said he was doing so to take a job out of state. Now, we found McGann in this picture from August 2024 in Plano, Texas, at a welcome back event for staff ahead of the school year. The Plano School District told KTVT in Dallas that McGann was only employed there for 4 days and he resigned before the start of the school year. It's unclear why, but certainly bizarre. He finished last school year in another school district, once again in Oklahoma, outside of Tulsa, before he moved to Arkansas, where he was going to work as an elementary school teacher this year in the community of Springdale, which is about a half-hour north of Devil's Den State Park. And it was in that park that police say McGann dressed all in black, wearing fingerless gloves, armed with a knife, and attacked the Brink family, who also had just moved to the state. And police say the couple, this family, did not know Andrew James McGann, and this attack was random. Police say McGann attacked the dad Clinton first, and at that moment the mom Kristen rushing her children to safety, but then she returned trying to help her husband, and that is when she lost her life. The 2 girls, ages 7 and 9, they were able to escape and they're physically okay, but it's impossible to comprehend what they witnessed and what they will have to live with without their parents forever. New court documents say that a witness allegedly saw McGann with blood on his face leave the park and get in a black 4-door sedan and take off. That car was a Kia which police were able to trace to McGann, and they found that car parked outside that barbershop in Springdale. Here's the surveillance video of McGann entering the barbershop and sitting down in the chair to get his haircut. We talked to those who worked at the barbershop, and they said that McGann would not give his name to them, and also he didn't say much, but the instructions he gave for a haircut, just not to touch the hair on the top of his head. And they believe that's because he was trying to use his hair to cover his face and shield his identity. But 4 minutes into that haircut, detectives entered the barbershop and took McGann into custody. He still had the cape on when they cuffed him. McGann was then taken to the county jail where he was processed. And this is video of that sent to us by the local sheriff's office in Arkansas. Detectives say in custody, McGann admitted to them that he killed Cristen and Clinton Brink. And they also say they have DNA that links McGann to the murders. They say inside of the car, they also found blood. McGann made his first court appearance in Arkansas. Here's video of that per KATV. This hearing, it lasted only 3 minutes. McGann didn't say anything, and he has yet to enter a plea. He is facing 2 counts of capital murder. The local prosecutor hinted that the death penalty would definitely be on the table in this case. McGann is expected to appear in court for his arraignment on August 25th. He is being represented by a public defender because he told the court he doesn't have the money for a lawyer. As for the Brink family, the victims in this story, 2 parents who died heroes protecting their little girls, there is a GoFundMe that has raised more than $70,000. The money will go to laying this couple to rest, but also helping the couple's daughters who now have to grow up without their mom and dad. Even though police seem to have a very strong case against the alleged killer, Andrew James McGann, what is still a mystery at this point is a motive. It's unclear whether police know it or what it is. That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law&Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.